On today's episode, I'll be checking out the Legends P.08, a BB shooting replica of the Luger parabellum pistol. Later on in the show, I'll demonstrate the techniques I use to age and weather the pistol, transforming it into a one-of-a-kind keepsake. Coming up on Airgun Reporter. Long sought after by firearm collectors, the P.08 pistol has been faithfully reproduced in this full-sized CO2-powered, all-metal replica offered by Umarex. The weight and feel of the gun is about as close as you can get to the real McCoy, and I have to say I was impressed when I first removed it from the box. Let's first take a look at the specs and details, and then we'll bring it to the range along with plenty of CO2 and shoot a few hundred rounds. For the karate testing, I used both Umarex CO2 cartridges and steel BBs. The temperature was about 70 degrees, a little cooler than I prefer when I test action pistols. However, the P.08 performed very well. I shot a 21-round string, which gave me a low velocity number of 376 FPS, a high of 396, an average of 387, an extreme spread of 20 feet per second, and a standard deviation of only 4.5. I set up my pellet trap 20 feet downrange for the accuracy testing, and I shot both bag-rested and offhand. I shot a few practice targets using a full magazine each time. I discovered that the P.08 fits comfortably in the hand when shooting and is a well-balanced replica. As is the case with many full-metal, non-blowback action pistols, the trigger pull can be on the heavy side since your finger is doing all of the mechanical work. With the P.08, I found that I can first cock the barrel, then ease off the trigger, get the pistol on target, and fire. This really helped with the accuracy, which I found impressive while using this method. A 6 o'clock hold at 20 feet put all or most of my rounds into a 2.5-inch target, indicating that the fixed sights are well calibrated on the die-cast frame. When I performed the trigger testing, I used my method of first cocking the barrel with my finger, then using the gauge to measure the remaining weight. That gave me an average of 6 pounds 14 ounces. Using the gauge to pull the trigger straight through to the break gave me an average of 7 pounds 1.5 ounces. This might not seem like a considerable savings, however my method did make a noticeable difference in the accuracy test. I think the P.08 has an awesome report when fired, producing the satisfying crack of a CO2 action pistol. In my test, I got a maximum reading of 99.8 decibels, which I would consider medium-high. My test is not scientific by any means, therefore, I'd be safe to say the pistol is backyard friendly. The P.08 made very good use of a single Umarex CO2 cartridge, firing off over 160 shots before it was empty. Of those, I'd say at least 110 rounds were hitting pretty hard out to 25 feet. Folks, the Legends Parabellum P.08 pistol is yet another fine collectible offered by Umarex. With practice, it has great accuracy and plenty of power for BB-safe targets at 20 to 30 feet. The authentic weight, balance, and appearance makes it practically unbeatable in its price range for a die-cast metal replica. Although you can expect a 7-pound trigger pull, if you try the method I used, I believe your shooting enjoyment and accuracy with the P.08 will greatly improve. Let's hope we continue to see affordable, well-made historical firearm replicas like this one available in 2014 for our beloved action pistol collections. For Airgun Reporter, my name is Paul Capello. Until next time.
Whoa, what the heck are we doing in my workshop? Well, I'll tell you. I like this pistol so much that I think I'd like it even better if it was worn and old looking and weathered and as if it was a real piece of history. So I'm going to do some body work to it and then apply some weathering techniques. I think it's going to look really cool. Let's get started. Woohoo! Cold stuff. Alright, well the first thing I'm going to do is use the Dremel tool to get rid of some of these seams. This pistol was made in 2 parts, so what I'll do is use the Dremel, smooth that out a bit, sand it, and try to fill in that seam right there. Let's get started. Ooh. Safety glasses. Start with the easy parts here. Now I'm going to be repainting this, so I'm not worried about the finish on it. A little more speed there. The paint actually helps me because I know that when the paint is removed from both halves of the pistol, that my seam is nice and flat. Alright, to prevent the seam from spreading, since this gun is screwed together, I'm putting some super glue in the seam and hopefully make it a little bit more durable. Keep those 2 halves from separating. Alright, I'm going to switch to a smaller tool so I can get in the little crevices. Alright, that should do it. Ooh, nice and shiny. All right, now that I have the seams pretty much filled in, what I'm going to do is take a couple of metal files and just hit some of the edges and put some grooves and some scratches in it. So let me go ahead and hit some of these edges here as if it's been dropped. These scratches will show up once I put a base coat on it. Make a little bit more worn around the trigger guard. Sometimes you can't be afraid, you just have to do it. Some of these sharp corners, round them off, put some flat spots in there. All right, this is looking pretty good. I'm gonna go ahead and get a base coat of paint on it, and then we'll move on to the next step. All right, I'm gonna start out with a little flat black, just to seal in the parts that I sanded. Let's see. Okay, now that I have the flat black on the pistol and all my seams are looking really nicely blended in, I'm going to put a base coat of sea blue onto the gun, just a very light coat, and then we're going to finish it off with a gunmetal color. All right, I'm gonna put my gunmetal in my reservoir. It still has the blue in there, but that's okay. Two colors will blend in nicely. And we'll get this back to the grayish color it originally was. All right, the first part of my weathering here, I'm gonna put a wash of black acrylic paint into all the little seams and the nooks and crannies. This will make all the highlights pop out and really make the pistol look dimensional. Now this is very watered down here. This is the first step to making it look aged. Okay, now that the black acrylic wash is dried, I'm going to start using some weathering powders. These are great. They use them for model trains, all types of models, anything you want to age and make it look grimy. We've got rusty reds, grimy blacks, gritty yellows, rusty brown, you name it. This is the fun part. So I'll use a fine brush. I'm going to start with some browns. Always start with the darkest colors and work your way up towards the lightest. Now, if you apply too much, you can just blow it off. But this is going to start looking really good very soon. And when we're all done with the powders, then we're going to put a clear coat on it to protect everything, keep all those colors sealed in. It's going to look great. Wow, this is really starting to look weathered and aged. The next step is to do some dry brushing with some silver to bring out the highlights. And then it's going to be a combination of adding a little bit more blacks, a little bit more powder, some more dry brushing. It's a whole process. Then we seal the whole thing in and we'll be done. All right, for the dry brushing, I'm going to start out with a darker color called Jet Exhaust and then work my way up to a brighter silver. Always start dark and then you go lighter. Okay, I have a nice soft bristle brush. Just gonna dip a little bit in there and then take most of the paint off on this cardboard here until there's very little left on the brush, hence the term dry brushing, because you don't want to overpaint too much. Then I'll just start hitting the highlights here, the edges. This will start bringing all the metallics back into it since we have so much powder on it. Don't want too much paint. You could always put more. It's very hard taking it off though. Just hit all the highlights, the corners, the areas where hands have touched it. Around the trigger, of course. Oh yeah, it's starting to look very metallic now. All right, it's really starting to look metallic and heavy, like it's the metal it was meant to be made from. Now you're not going to see the grip frame. We're going to do something special to the grips, but I like to cover whatever I can. Even if it's covered up by the grips, at least I know it's there. And it looks pretty cool. You could always go back and darken up. I'm gonna put some rust spots in here. It's gonna look really cool.
Folks, this really has been a fun project for me. I wanted the P.08 to look like it had been stored inside a leaky ammo box, buried for 100 years, and then unearthed by treasure hunters. Of course, you can use the techniques I showed you to give it a more subtle weathered look, perhaps removing a bit of bluing and adding rust here and there. That's the beauty of using your hands and being creative. Just let your imagination soar. I hope you've enjoyed being sidetracked for a bit from my regular programming, and as always, shoot safe and have fun.
Please remember, folks, air guns are not toys. Even the smallest calibers can cause serious harm if not used properly. And you should never, under any circumstance, point an air gun at another person. Parents, if you teach your children to shoot responsibly, they will have a lifetime of air gun enjoyment.